So, what are your views on the current scenario of the construction industry in India?
Uh, it's a well-known thing that the construction industry is a major player as far as economic activities are concerned, and at a time when we are looking for higher levels of growth, naturally the construction industry has to cope with the challenges and come forward. Of course, it's dependent on many factors like what is the investment scenario, what is the requirement as far as construction activities are concerned. It's dependent on that, but the overall economic policy scenario seems to encourage more of construction activity, whether it is in the form of projects, whether it is the real estate sector, or whether it is in various other segments of activity. So, in a developing economy, the role of the sector is very much there. It may pick up at certain stages. It may not be that vibrant at certain times. So the question is how vibrant can it be in tune with the economic policies of the government at a particular point in time.
So, keeping in mind the Make in India thing and the Make in Maharashtra initiatives that are currently there, what is your vision of in terms of housing development?
When we talk about housing, it's well known that there is a huge shortage of housing units both in the rural and urban areas. And the national program of Housing for All targets to provide houses to every such household who do not own a house now by the year 2022. It's a very huge challenge. There are whole lots of activities to be put together in terms of identifying the persons who need it, the finances required, and taking up the activity in a time-bound manner so that when we talk about India's urban areas, we are talking of a shortage of 2 crore units to be built. That's the dimension. Similarly, in the rural areas, something like 5 crore plus houses are to be built so that each person has claim to what is called his own, her own dwelling units. How to make this work? That's a big challenge, and the national intentions are there. Now it's for the state governments and the cities and other rural areas to work out how best to implement. How will land become available? How will the resources become available? How will a time-bound strategy be undertaken to complete construction so that in the proper sense of the word, those who are going to get a house become owners and residents of the house.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Ma'am, what does the current market analysis indicate with regard to sustainable construction practices?
Sustainable construction practices is a basis on which most smart cities have to be developed. And I am also looking at the climate resilience and disaster resilience, and unless there is a good building practices, you can have a lot of losses of lives also. And it is necessary for the quality of life as well as life itself, because the building should protect the lives. In terms of your question,
In terms of sustainable construction practices.
sustainable construction practices have to be introduced in several ways. We were just talking about the prefab needs for in the city especially, because unless the prefab is done, you have too many people coming in and going out and too much dust pollution, noise pollution. So this is one thing we are recommending for our when I look at the urban governance.
Ma'am, what are the current solutions and the new solutions that we are looking forward in terms of the building construction industry and the architectures that are newly coming up to tackle issues of natural disasters in more effective ways?
The buildings have to be, resilient. So you need to have strength of the building should be very good. And also we are, when you look at the climate resilience, we are thinking of energy efficient building as well. And so there are many norms that you need to follow. We need to have also IT technologies that connect various parts of buildings functions and building activities. You need to have ensure safety of the residents. So I think the over time this is expanding and getting better and better, but we need to be on toes to encourage implementation of these. Otherwise sometimes they are costlier, and if you do not encourage that, people go on with their original ways and try to cut corners. So you need to have the norms in place, that these norms must be there, these building codes must be followed, and if it's costly, there is a reason for that cost, and the cost should be recovered in a proper way.
So, what are your views on the current scenario of the construction industry in India?
Construction industries. In our country, there is a great scope for construction industry because after food, shelter is the basic need. And our government has already announced housing for all, that is their theme. And for providing so many houses, of course it's a big challenge, but it's a great dream to have one's own house. And I think that we collectively, all people, the planners and the government agencies together can provide many houses to the needy people. And India would be a certainly better place in the world to have with this theme, housing for all and affordable housing. So that is the need of the hour.
So, what are the initiatives taken by the government currently aligning Make in India and Make in Maharashtra towards a sustainable construction and architectural city?
Yes. Uh, Make in India has been successful week organized by Government of India and Government of Maharashtra jointly, and we received huge response for this initiative, and MOUs worth more than rupees 8 lakh crores were signed with the Government of Maharashtra for setting up new industries, and this is a great challenge before us, since we have to convert all these MOUs into the real industry, and we are very busy tackling this issue. Our main aim is to provide jobs to our youngsters who are in greater number in demand, and they are aspiring new jobs. So naturally, Government of Maharashtra is busy with the skill development initiatives. We have to make our youngsters employable, and with the new programs of skill development, I am sure that industry will find very industry-friendly atmosphere in Maharashtra.
So, finally, what are the new initiatives or the new policies that we can look forward to make smart cities more sustainable in terms of architecture, in terms of construction, and even in terms of disaster management as well?
Now the concept of smart cities itself is a big challenge to the people busy in construction industry, the planners, the architects, the engineers. And with their participation, we can transform our cities, old cities, into really smart cities. That is one part. We are also in the process of setting up new brand smart cities. And I think with the emergence of these cities, people will find better places to stay with state-of-the-art infrastructure, seamless transportation, and clean environment, adequate water, perfect garbage management system. With all these features, our new smart cities would be places where the people would love to stay.
So, what are your views on the current scenario of the construction industry?
See, today, I think the entire construction industry is a lopsided. you are constructing houses which people don't need. On the other hand, for people who need houses, there are no houses to be lived in. So you have a huge inventory of constructed flats lying vacant, and simultaneously you have a large population which cannot afford houses, which are living in subhuman conditions, in slums, public streets, and other public places.
Sir, keeping in mind the Make in India initiative and the Make in Maharashtra initiatives aligning towards it, what do you think should be the vision for Maharashtra in terms of housing development?
I think, to my mind, two things are required. First is process engineering for enabling ease of doing business. Today, for anybody who wants to construct a building in a legal manner, the obstacles are innumerable. The process is extremely complex, and what happens is that with all efforts, etc., enormous time effort is expended in getting approval for a construction. And it is not a one-stage approval. At every stage, you have to again go for fresh approvals. First you get IOD, then you get permission to go to plane, then certain floors, etc. And after you do everything to get the occupancy certificate, is another ordeal. I think the most important thing which we require is simplify all the building regulations, remove the element of discretion, arbitrariness, and make the process of approval simple, quick, and easy to manage. Then second aspect is, in the present scenario in the building industry, there seems to be no thought of a poor man, how to provide a house to him. Definitely you do require systems whereby a person who cannot afford the mega rents, who can't afford the huge capital cost, can buy a house at a reasonable price, or at least he can rent a house, and maybe after 15-20 years ownership can go to him. I think some measures are required to be taken in this regard, and unless this is done, the problem of ever-growing slums and unauthorized occupation cannot be controlled.
So what, according to you, should be the new initiatives that the government should take in promoting sustainable construction practices?
I think government has a basic responsibility. In many major cities across the world, the city government, the local state government do have provisions whereby a large number of houses are constructed by them, so that poor people who can't afford to buy a house at high prices can live them by paying a reasonable rent. I think initiative in this regard is necessary. And this can also be developed into a system whereby by charging a slightly larger rent, the person can acquire ownership of the house after 15-20 years. This would enable him to maintain the house better. This would also enable him to have some security of residence. I think some steps in this regard are needed immediately.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your time. Done. Hello, sir. Good afternoon. Sir, what are your views on the current scenario of the construction industry in India currently?
Hold this in my hand. The recent index about industrial production has shown a growth after many months or several years of downtrend. This indicates picking up in the momentum of the economy and industrial production. Of course, these would be considered green shoots, but if this momentum continues in the coming years, in the coming months and coming years, I'm sure that we will see much more construction happening in the country. there are a lot of things that need to be done to aid this. One of the biggest need for construction was again housing, which has not been in the best of health for the last many years. This would need to pick up, and I think that government's announcements about the housing sector should come as a shot in the arm for improvement in the construction industry also.
So, keeping in mind the Make in India initiative and aligning it towards Make in Maharashtra, what is your vision for Maharashtra in terms of housing development?
I would think that Maharashtra is one of the biggest places in terms of attracting housing. I would think that relatively speaking, probably the Maharashtra housing sector did not suffer as much of a slump as the other places. Say up north, I come from Gurgaon. I would think that Noida and NCR regions probably suffered far more. But like I said, with the recent initiatives of government in regard to housing and some general pickup in the economic activity, Maharashtra is probably much better poised to stage a strong recovery and comeback than other regions of the country.
So, going green being the talk of the whole world, people aiming for smart cities and everything, how is the government aligning its policies towards making much more sustainable construction practices in the country?
One of the things in terms of new building, whether it is industrial building or housing, is about using a lot of renewable energy to meet the requirements of the house itself or the industry itself. So I think this is also going to help a lot in reducing the consumption of electricity from the grid and probably making the entire place green. That is one thing that I would see. The second thing I see is that in use of construction material for construction, a lot of fly ash can be used. It is coming up in some way. This is something that can get a much bigger boost. It will help in two ways. One is it will help in use of fly ash. Disposal of fly ash from the power industry is going to be a very big challenge. It's already a challenge. It's going to become a much bigger challenge. If you are able to use that in the construction industry, then part of the challenge can be met. I think this is the way it will be going forward. More and more use of renewable energy in meeting the needs of the residents as well as the industry, plus using a lot of these waste like fly ash in the construction. That will help us take it forward quite a bit.